All right, picture this. Hidden inside a 10-day educational simulation, originally built for 6th graders, believe it or not, is an absolute masterclass in high-stakes decision-making. It's called the Compass. And honestly, the psychological traps it exposes are the exact same ones that trip up Fortune 500 CEOs and military generals. Over the course of these 10 days, students are thrown into this intense experience that proves one massive counterintuitive point. When the stakes are highest, the boring choice actually wins.
So let's put you right in the driver's seat for a second. Imagine you've just been appointed as a royal cartographer for the Kingdom of Marigea. Big title, right? Your job is to recommend a permanent, brand-new trade road connecting the kingdom's inland capital to a major coastal port. You literally hold the fate of a multi-million gold trade route in your hands. This isn't just about casually drawing lines on a map. It's about wading through data, dealing with a ton of uncertainty, and making a highly public recommendation that's going to affect the entire kingdom for decades.
Right off the bat on day one, they hand you 2 geographic surveys. Option A is this thrilling, dramatic mountain route cutting straight through the Iron Spine Range. It boasts a blazing fast 12-day ideal travel speed. Sounds awesome. Then you've got option B, the Silverwater River Valley. It's flat farmland, completely unremarkable, and it crawls along at an 18-day ideal speed. Kind of a yawn, right? At first glance, that mountain pass feels like the absolute obvious, exciting choice. I mean, who wouldn't want to conquer the Iron Spine?
But here's the catch. This whole simulation, it's a massive psychological trap. The foundational rule built into the DNA of the compass is incredibly simple. The boring choice wins. The entire thing is structurally rigged to show students that the totally mundane river route is actually superior in literally every single metric. Think about it. Year-round operation, full cargo capacity, and a massive 95% completion rate. The mountain, on the other hand, it shuts down for 4 months a year and fails 40% of the time. Yet, the simulation actively, relentlessly lures students toward that dangerous mountain.
So how does this actually play out? Well, it's a 10-day pressure cooker. We start by dropping an anchor on day 1, hit a point of no return, a midpoint lock-in on day 5, face a brutal mathematical reckoning on day 8, and finish with a massive reveal on day 10. Let's actually look at how they set the trap on day 1.
The trap is set the second the clock starts. Teachers are specifically instructed to hand out the Mountain Pass survey first. That 12 days ideal travel time, it immediately becomes an anchor. And if you're not familiar, anchoring is a cognitive bias where the very first number you see becomes the loudest in your head. It completely frames how you see everything else. Because these students see 12 days first, the river's 17-day average suddenly feels agonizingly slow. The anchor holds their brains hostage. It's exactly like seeing an inflated original price tag right next to a sales price, even though realistically, the mountain actually averages 22 days once you factor in the brutal weather.
Then, on day 2, the experts chime in. Enter Commander Aldrich Voss. This guy is the most celebrated explorer in the kingdom. His portrait is hanging up in the Royal Academy. His memoirs literally required reading. And he delivers this incredibly poetic, stirring testimony that just yanks the students even further toward the mountains. In this sweeping, heroic voice he proclaims, "I have crossed the Iron Spine 7 times. The mountain rewards the bold." I mean, wow, it sounds incredible, doesn't it? It sounds exactly like what we think true leadership sounds like.
But hold on a second. What happens when you actually compare Commander Voss to the second expert, Surveyor Marin Thatch? Thatch doesn't have a fancy portrait. No fame, hasn't even crossed the mountains. But what Thatch does have is 15 years of hard data. If you actually look closely at what Voss is saying, he uses exactly 0 specific metrics. No maintenance costs, no failure rates, no cargo data whatsoever. Just pure, unadulterated emotional appeal. Thatch, meanwhile, quietly provides every single relevant metric the kingdom could possibly need.
This setup right here perfectly isolates what we call authority bias. It's our natural tendency to trust a famous, decorated, or authoritative voice way more than specific, measurable evidence. The simulation brilliantly exposes this. If you rate Commander Voss higher than Surveyor Thatch, you're given a gold star to reputation, not evidence. And almost every time, the students flock to Voss's fame, completely ignoring the quiet, verifiable truth sitting right there in Thatch's 50 years of historical data. By day 3, things get a bit messy. A mixed evidence packet arrives with 6 different documents. 3 of them lean heavily toward the mountain, using big, impressive language, and 3 lean toward the river, using specific numbers. And boom, this is where students fall face first into the confirmation trap. Driven by confirmation bias, they start actively filtering the evidence. They'll spend significantly more time obsessing over the impressive documents that make them feel good about their initial mountain choice, and they just quickly skim right past the boring tax records and maintenance logs that completely contradict them.
And this perfectly tees up what happens next on day 4. The kingdom hands over historical records, which include these totally thrilling tales of heroes battling snowstorms and clearing massive rock slides. These stories make conquering the dangerous mountains seem like this noble, exciting challenge. But right next to those stories are cold, boring, 40-row statistical tables showing 50 years of cargo data. Now guess which one the human brain naturally prefers? Every time, the vivid, cinematic stories completely crowd out the cold statistics.
And the absolute craziest part is hidden right here in the numbers, 3 versus 40. The actual weight of the evidence is totally buried. Those vivid, exciting stories, they only cover 3 individual expeditions. That's it. Meanwhile, the completely ignored, boring data tables cover 40 expeditions spanning over half a century. The math clearly shows a 60% failure rate for the mountain, but those 3 heroic stories are just so vivid that the students literally can't feel the sheer volume of the statistics telling them to stop.
We call this availability bias in action. It's the trap of believing that easy-to-picture dramatic stories are somehow more representative of reality than actual boring statistical volume. In our memories, vividness always beats volume. This exact bias is what gives the students the false confidence to formally sign off and lock in their objectively bad mountain recommendations by the midpoint of the simulation on day 5. They literally commit the kingdom's future to a path built entirely on poetry and adrenaline.
Then, just to mess with them a little more, day 7 introduces a third option, the Old King's Road. It's an existing path, and improving it would cost just a fraction of building a totally new road. Almost instantly, 20 to 30% of the decision-makers jump ship and cling to it simply because human beings inherently prefer the devil we know. This is a masterclass in status quo bias. That familiar option pulls at them harder than the actual evidence, even though its data is still vastly inferior to the river. But then comes day 8. The reckoning. This is where the students are forced to sit down and actually calculate the raw 10-year mathematical projections. They have to add it all up: construction, maintenance, tolls, and cargo losses. And the numbers utterly, mercilessly debunk both the mountain and the old road. The mountain pass turns out to have a catastrophic 40% cargo failure rate. The old road, it fails 25% of the time. And the Barring River Valley, a tiny 5% failure rate.
The financial climax of this whole thing is just brutal. Over a 10-year span, the dramatic, exciting mountain route that everyone loved actually loses the kingdom 52,000 gold marks. It's a massive, bleeding drain on the treasury, thanks to seasonal closures and constant emergency repairs. The safe, familiar Old King's Road, it generates a modest 32,000. But that flat, unremarkable, boring River Valley, it rakes in a massive net profit of 67,100 gold marks.
Think about that gap for a second. 119,000 gold marks. That is the staggering swing between the absolute best choice and the worst choice. It is the literal mathematical cost of following cognitive biases, famous names, and pretty poetry instead of just sitting down and reading the boring data. The kingdom ends up paying out of pocket for every single bias the cartographer failed to catch.
What's super fascinating here is watching how the human brain scrambles to protect its own ego when faced with these failures. When historical expedition outcomes are revealed, and 3 out of 5 mountain journeys end in absolute disaster, the students immediately suffer from hindsight bias. They'll literally tell the teacher, "Oh, well, I knew that would happen. It was so obvious." They trick themselves into believing they knew the river was the right choice all along, completely ignoring the fact that their own written day 5 predictions prove they bet everything on the mountain.
Which brings us to the brilliant Day 10 reveal. Throughout this entire simulation, the teachers never once used the actual scientific names of these cognitive biases. They just let the students fall into the traps first. But on Day 10, the curtain lifts. Anchoring, authority bias, confirmation bias, availability bias. The students map these exact psychological traps to the specific days they fell for them. And the ultimate lesson? The simulation actually grades them on their self-awareness and their honest defense of their process, not on their final route answer.
So, what's the real-world takeaway for us here? Well, you should walk away with 3 highly practical questions that a good route analyst, or anyone making a big decision, always asks. 1. Did I weigh expert testimony honestly against the actual evidence? 2. Did I update my plan when the evidence changed, or did I blindly defend my day 1 anchor?
And 3, did I explicitly name what the data cannot tell me about the future? These are incredibly powerful tools you can carry into every major life decision.
As we wrap this up, take a hard look at the choices sitting on your own desk right now. In your own high-stakes decision-making, are you letting the spectacular distract you from the structurally sound? Are you chasing that dramatic, famous mountain pass because it feels exciting? Or are you brave enough to step back, look at the cold, hard numbers, and actually let the boring choice win?